Hi, IASvideos.com is presenting you simplified daily current affairs analysis.
Cyclone Titli upgraded to very severe storm. 3 Andhra districts on high alert. What is cyclone? Where does it derive its energy? How are cyclones categorized? How are cyclones named? When did we start naming cyclones? What happens to the names of the storms that are very severe? GS Paper 1. Important geophysical phenomena such as earthquakes, tsunami, volcanic activity, cyclone. In this video, you can find detailed answers for all the above questions. The above article has been retrieved from hindustantimes.com, dated October 11, 2018. What is the context about? The Weather Bureau said Cyclone Titli intensified into a very severe cyclonic storm as heavy rains lashed Odisha's Ganjam, Gajapati, Puri, Balasore and Kendrapara districts. The MET department upgraded Cyclone Titli to very severe cyclonic storm on October 10th, and it was expected to make a landfall on October 11th in Odisha and adjoining North Andhra Pradesh coasts between Gopalpur and Kalingamapatnam. What is cyclone? Where does it derive its energy? A cyclone is an area of closed, circular fluid motion rotating in the same direction as the Earth. This is usually categorized by inward spiraling winds that rotate anti-clockwise in the northern hemisphere and clockwise in the southern hemisphere of the Earth. Most large-scale cyclonic circulations are centered on areas of low atmospheric pressure. The main source of energy for tropical cyclones is the warm oceans in the tropical regions. To initiate a tropical cyclone, the sea surface temperature generally needs to be above 26.5 degrees C. However, existing cyclones often persist as they move over cooler waters. How are the cyclones categorized? Category 1. Wind and gales of 90 to 125 kph, negligible house damage, some damage to trees and crops. Category 2. Destructive winds of 125 to 164 kph, minor house damage, significant damage to trees, crops and vehicles, risk of power failure. Category 3. Very destructive winds of 165 to 224 kph, some roof and structural damage, some caravans destroyed, power failure likely. Category 4. Very destructive winds of 225 to 279 kph, significant roofing loss and structural damage, vehicles blown away, widespread power failures. Category 5. Very destructive wind gusts of more than 280 kph, extremely dangerous with widespread destruction. How are cyclones named? Cyclones were usually not named. The tradition started with hurricanes in Atlantic Ocean, where tropical storms that reached sustained wind speeds of 39 miles per hour were given names. Incidentally, hurricanes, typhoons, cyclones are all the same, just different names for tropical storms in different parts of the world. Hurricane in the Atlantic, typhoon in the Pacific and cyclone in the Indian Ocean. If the storm's wind speed reaches or crosses 74 mph, it is then classified into a hurricane or cyclone or a typhoon. Tropical storms are given names and they retain the name if they develop into a cyclone, hurricane or a typhoon. When did we start naming cyclones? Tropical cyclones are named to provide easy communication between forecasters and the general public regarding forecasts, watches and warnings. The first use of a proper name for a proper tropical cyclone was by an Australian forecaster early in the 20th century. He gave tropical cyclone names after political figures he disliked. During World War II, tropical cyclones were informally given women's names by US Army aircraft and Navy meteorologists who were monitoring and forecasting tropical cyclones over the Pacific, and the practice of naming continued. What happens to the names of the storms that were very severe? Names of the storms that cause widespread damage and deaths are usually retired and are not brought back or reused later, at least for 10 years. These names are then replaced with the new names. The names are retired as a mark of respect to the dead. Once a name is officially retired, it is then replaced with a name of the same gender and beginning with the same letter. So far, since 1972, there have been 50 names that have been retired. The India-Russia Annual Summit was held recently in India, with uncertainty over US sanctions for defense deals. GS Paper 2. Bilateral, regional and global groupings and agreements involving India. Source: The Hindu. What is the context about? The India-Russia Annual Summit was held recently in India with uncertainty over US sanctions for defense deals. Given this, it is essential to understand the significance of the meet and the US's role in India-Russia relations. What are the significant outcomes of summit? The S-400 contract was signed in a low-key manner with no mention in press statement by the leaders. Nevertheless, it was clear assertion of autonomy of Indian decision-making on Russia. International issues of mutual interest, especially on terrorism, Afghanistan and the Indo-Pacific were discussed. On Afghanistan, India expressed support for the Moscow format. Under this, Russia involves regional countries and major powers in an effort to draw the Taliban into negotiations with the Afghan leadership. The US has boycotted this initiative but has initiated its own dialogue with the Taliban. India and Russia have set a target of $30 billion bilateral trade by 2025. There are clear opportunities for cooperation between Russia and India. But even before CAATSA, there was confusion in India about sanctions against Russia. What is US's role in India-Russia relations? India balancing its relations between the US and Russia has been challenged for quite some time. India has emphasized earlier that its growing proximity to the US would not affect relations with Russia. Given this, the recent summit was centered over the challenges in sealing the S-400 deal. As the US has been publicly warning for months that the purchase could attract sanctions. The recent India-US 2+2 meeting also did not resolve this issue. Internationalization of Chinese currency. GS Paper 2. India and its neighborhood relations. Source: businessstandard.com. What is the context about? The internationalization of the Chinese currency, the renminbi, has been one of the key objectives of Chinese economic reform. The process of internationalization of the Chinese currency was steady up until August 2015, when a cumulative 3% devaluation as part of exchange rate reform roiled the financial and the stock markets and triggered capital flight. This led to the reversal, at least temporarily, of the current account convertibility, reimposition of some controls on capital flows, including repatriation of profits and restricting overseas direct investment by Chinese conglomerates. What were earlier measures of China in this regard? The August 2015 reform had linked the exchange rate to two variables, tracking the value of 13 major currencies on a weighted basis. With the dollar as its largest component, followed by the euros and the Japanese yen, the other reform was closing rate of the previous day. This limited exchange rate variability was later constrained by the introduction in May 2017 of the third counter-cyclical adjustment factor, which means that the central bank will intervene whenever deemed necessary in case of market volatility. Recent developments of China to internationalize its currency. China is opening up its large bond market, currently estimated at $9.4 trillion, to foreign institutional investors. Foreign firms can now own up to 51% of domestic security. Insurance and fund management firms, and even this cap will be removed in 3 years. Hedging by private foreign investors up to the amount of funds they are managing would now be permitted for the first time. Chinese domestic financial institutions are being encouraged to conduct their overseas financing business for the RBI projects in the RMB. An import avenue for internationalization of the Chinese currency has opened up with the setting up of Shanghai International Energy Exchange in March this year. EC defends decision to hold by polls. GS Paper 2, Salient Features of the Representation of People's Act. Source, thehindu.com. What is the context about? Amidst murmurs in political circles that the Lok Sabha by-polls in Karnataka to 3 seats was unnecessary, the Election Commission has cited Section 151A of the Representation of People Act, which mandated it. What is the issue now? Experts have written to the President questioning the rationale behind holding by-elections close to general elections. President Ramnath Kovind has been requested to withdraw notification by election. They have questioned EC's move as the announcement of by-elections to parliamentary constituencies were only in Karnataka, while there are vacant constituencies in Andhra Pradesh too. What is Section 151A of the RPA all about? It mandates the Election Commission to fill the casual vacancies in the Houses of Parliament and the state legislatures through by-elections within 6 months from the date of occurrence of the vacancy, provided that the remainder of the term of a member in relation to a vacancy is 1 year or more. How EC defends its move? By-elections are required to be held under Section 151A of RP Act within 6 months from the date of occurrence of the vacancy. Vacancies in Karnataka occurred more than a year before the expiry of the term of the House. In case of vacancies in Andhra Pradesh, there is no need to hold by-elections as the remaining term of Lok Sabha is less than 1 year. Strengthening forest fire management will help India meet its long-term climate change goal, says new report. GS Paper 3, Conservation. Source, pib.nic.in. What is the context about? A report titled Strengthening Forest Fire Management in India, jointly prepared by the MOEFCC and the World Bank, has been released. Highlights of the report. Occurrence of forest fires and their impact. Forest fire occur in around half of the country's 647 districts every year. Central India has the largest area affected by fire. Northeast accounts for 56% of burned forest land during 2003 to 2016, followed by southern states and the northeast. However, northeastern states account for the biggest share of the fire detections, with at least 55% of fire incidents reported during 2003 to 2016. Concerns. With at least 1 in 4 people dependent on forest for their livelihood, India is losing at least 1,100 crore rupees due to forest fire every year, says the new World Bank report. The report calls for a national plan for the prevention of forest fire. Repeated fires in short succession are reducing diversity of species and harming natural regeneration while posing a risk to over 92 million in India who live in areas of forest cover. Way ahead. The findings are significant since preventing forest fires is crucial to meet nationally determined contributions in order to limit global warming. As per the 5th assessment report of the IPCC, forest fires globally contribute 2.5 billion to 4.0 billion tons of CO2 to carbon emissions every year. Tackling forest fires is even more important in India as the country has committed to bringing 33% of its geographical area under forest cover by 2030 as part of NDCs.